Hey everyone, so today I want to walk you through something I've been working on. It's a Scannerless vulnerability intelligence platform built in Azure. The goal of this project or this platform was to explore that what vulnerability management looks like or would look like when you fully leverage native Azure security data. So instead of relying on traditional scan engines like Tenable or Nessus, everything you're seeing here is driven by Azure native signals. So things like endpoint telemetry, vulnerability intelligence, asset metadata, and also the enrichment APIs that already exist inside of the Azure ecosystem. So here there are no network scans, there's no credentialed scans and no active probing. The idea was to answer a very practical question of how accurate and useful can vulnerability management be when we trust the data Azure is already collecting. Azure already has deep visibility into assets through services like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Defender Vulnerability Management. Because Azure continuously collects data, collects software inventory, vulnerability signals, and also configuration states, and as well as asset context. So that means accuracy is often higher for things like installed software versions or exposure over time, whether vulnerabilities are actually present on the system. So in this project, I intentionally lean into that model. And instead of relying on heavyweight scan engines, this platform just builds vulnerability intelligence from Azure native security signals. I ask a simple question: what does Azure already know about this environment or any environment? And the platform then builds vulnerability intelligence on top of that trusted data. And this matters even more in cloud environments where assets change quickly and traditional scans don't always keep up. So let's jump into the what we have here. So on the left here, we have a few side panel pages. So the first one is the dashboard. And on the dashboard, this view represents a point in time security posture of the environment using the scannerless own data only. So everything here is derived from Azure native signals. So no scans, no extra agents beyond what Azure already provides. So what the dashboard basically what it's meant to show is that it answers a simple question. So if I'm a security or cloud owner, what does my risk look like right now? That is not raw. So this is not raw vulnerability output. It's a curated posture view. So a few things to call out here. We have as you look around, you have different kind of high level metrics, so like asset coverage, total findings, and then also severity distribution here at the bottom. And then he'll as of the phase that is in now, it runs as a scan, but obviously down the line for like phase two and other phases, it'll be continuous, pulling data continuously. So because the data comes from Azure Security Telemetry, this view reflects the current state of the environment when the pipeline runs, not when a scan finishes. So this is especially important in cloud environments where assets are created, modified, and destroyed frequently. So now let's run history, run history page. So each run that gets run in this state gets represented here. It falls here and it gets represented on a full execution of the scannerless pipeline. So the pipeline pulls vulnerability and assets intelligence from Azure sources. It enriches it, scores it, and then generates decisions. So nothing here triggers a scan because the data is sourced from Azure services that are already collecting telemetry. Each one is fast, repeatable, and also it's auditable. So this gives you basically a snapshot of the intelligence that can be run often as needed without over the overhead of scanning. And then if we move to the latest run tab, so we have here three tabs within this pane. So the overview tab basically provides a cloud security posture using only Azure derived signals, asset counts, findings, severity distribution, and data sources are calculated without active scanning. So this shows that you can still that you can still answer high level risk questions using accurate Azure backed data. Um, and then if we move to the findings tab, so this is where the actual Azure data turns into action. So Each row represents an asset. So and then the platform combines vulnerability data, well, the vulnerability intelligence from Defender, asset context from Azure, and the scoring logic to identify what actually deserves attention. So you also notice that we also implemented the MDVN, which is Microsoft Defender vulnerability management, and it surfaced directly into the assets. So that tells you where Azure has high confidence in vulnerability intelligence because it's pulling that data all from all those platforms. And then if we click on one of them, you can deep dive how many. So it finds either high, medium, or lows of the severities of critical of vulnerabilities, and we can click on each one of those and to get more information of what it is and how it was the confidence that it was, that the assessment confidence that it has, and depending on the CV, if there's one available, it'll just populate here. And then if we move to the evidence tab, this is so there's basically this tab exists to answer a different question than the findings tab. So then this tab, it's the question is not what I should fix, but why should I trust this decision to fix it? So this is especially important in cloud environments where teams need to understand data lineage. Because here you see many assets were processed. Well, right now for this phase, I only have it for fetching back or getting pulling back data for only 3 assets because it's just for the demo purposes, I just had it for 3 assets in total. But here, you can see that findings like how many findings were discovered at the severity distribution and on which Azure data sources are contributed. Again, you can click and it'll give you kind of a small overview on that specific asset. Another thing I wanted to point out, so I have everything kind of in demo mode. So basically, for this toggle here in demo mode, everything, all the like assets, asset information, and their asset IDs are all hidden. Since this is an actual, because this is a platform use realistic Azure style data. So this demo mode ensures that sensitivity identifiers are masked. So yeah, that's basically what that does. So moving back to the evidence. So here, so in the evidence tab here, you see how many assets were processed, how many findings were discovered, the severity distribution, and in which Azure data sources contributed to it. This makes the system defensible from an audit and governance perspective as well. So when you expand an asset, as I mentioned earlier, the evidence is grouped by the system level. So you can see which Azure sources contributed, how many findings exist, and also it gives you a small set of representative examples here. And this basically on these representative examples, instead of dumping every vulnerability, the platform selects these samples, and these are chosen based on scoring, validation needs, and coverage. And this keeps evidence review manageable without sacrificing transparency. And then also, when a deeper validation is needed, the raw evidence is still available for download. And in case this is important for engineering or investigations, or even for debugging, but it's not required for everyday decision making, obviously. So this project shows that vulnerability management doesn't always need to start with a scan. By leveraging Azure-native security data, we can build accurate and explainable and repeatable vulnerability intelligence. So traditional scanners still have value, but in cloud environments, they're no longer the only source of truth. Because this platform, and as you saw, this platform explores what's possible when Azure becomes the foundation. I wanted to close this demo just by talking briefly about what comes next for what I plan to do next with this platform. So, because what you're seeing today is just a foundation. So, but just a quick point that it proves that Scannerless Azure first vulnerability intelligence is not only possible, but it's also practical. So for the next phase, it's about scale and efficiency. So that includes expanding the MDVM enrichment coverage across all assets, improving caching so enrichment is fast and even at a large scale. There's a chance to pull all the data, And then also treating Azure Vulnerability Intelligence as a continuously refreshed knowledge base, but not just a one-time pull like how we have it here set up currently. So the goal is to make vulnerability context cheaper and faster to access as environments grow. So yeah, so let me know. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one.